Betrayal and arrest. Jesus, having prayed this prayer, left with his disciples and crossed over the brook Kidron at a place where there was a garden. He and his disciples entered. Now, Judas, his betrayer, knew the place because Jesus and his disciples went there often. So Judas led the way to the garden, and the Roman soldiers and police sent by the high priests and Pharisees followed. They arrived there with lanterns and torches and swords. Jesus, knowing by now everything that was coming down on him, went out and met them. He said, "Who are you after?" They answered, "Jesus the Nazarene." He said, "That's me." The soldiers recoiled, totally taken aback. Now Judas, his betrayer, stood out like a sore thumb. Jesus asked again, "Who are you after?" They answered, "Jesus the Nazarene." "I told you," said Jesus. "That's me. I'm the one. So if it's me that you're after, let these others go." This validated the words in Jesus' prayer, "I didn't lose one of those that you gave me." Just then, Simon Peter, who was carrying a sword, pulled it from its sheath and struck the chief priest's servant, cutting off his right ear. Malchus was the servant's name. Jesus ordered Peter, "Put back your sword. Do you think for a minute I'm not going to drink the cup that the Father has given me?"
John chapter 18, 12 to 27. Then the Roman soldiers, under their commander, joined by the Jewish police, seized Jesus and tied him up. They took him first to Annas, father-in-law of Caiaphas. Caiaphas was the chief priest then. It was Caiaphas who advised the Jews to their advantage that one man die. Simon Peter and another disciple followed Jesus. That other disciple was known to the chief priest, and so he went in with Jesus to the chief priest's courtyard. Peter had to stay outside. Then the other disciple went out, spoke to the doorkeeper, and got Peter in. The young woman, who was the doorkeeper, said to Peter, "Aren't you one of this man's disciples?" He said, "No, I'm not." The servants and police had made a fire because of the cold and were huddling there, warming themselves. Peter stood with them, trying to get warm. Annas interrogated Jesus regarding his disciples and his teaching. Jesus answered, "I've spoken openly in public. I've taught regularly in meeting places and the temple, where the Jews all come together. Everything has been out in the open. I've said nothing in secret. So why are you treating me like a conspirator? Question those who have been listening to me. They know well what I have said. My teachings have all been above board." When he said this, one of the policemen standing there slapped Jesus across the face, saying, "How dare you speak to the chief priest like that?" Jesus replied, "If I have said something wrong, prove it." If I've spoken the plain truth, why this slapping around? Then Annas sent him, still tied up, to the chief priest.
Remind yourself on this Good Friday that there is an ebb and flow in the tide of human affairs. And if you cannot hold on one moment longer, just hold on or reach out for help, because the tide will turn. It always does. There is an aliveness and a spirit of life that is biased towards life and hope. I light this candle for you, your families. Behold, the people's candle is lit. May it inspire you to cleanse the temple of our civilization, violence and destructiveness, to cleanse the temple of the earth, prevent global warming. I invite those who wish to come forward, like God.
John 18:28-40. What is true? They led Jesus then from Caiaphas to the Roman governor's palace. It was early morning. They themselves didn't enter the palace because they didn't want to be disqualified from eating Passover. So Pilate came out to them and spoke. What charge do you bring against this man? They said, if he hadn't been doing something evil, do you think we'd be here bothering you? Pilate said, you take him. Judge him by your law. This would confirm Jesus' word indicating the way he died. Pilate went back into the palace and called for Jesus. He said, are you the king of the Jews? Jesus answered, are you saying this on your own, or did others tell you this about it? Pilate said, do I look like a Jew? Your people and your high priest turned you over to me. What did you do? My kingdom, said Jesus, doesn't consist of what you see around me. If it did, my followers would fight so that I wouldn't be handed over to you. But I am not that kind of king, not the world's kind of king. And Pilate said, so are you a king or not? Jesus answered, you tell me. Because I am king, I was born and entered the world, so that I could witness to the truth. Everyone who cares the truth, who has any feeling of truth, recognizes my voice. Pilate said, what is truth? Then he went back out to the Jews and told them, I find nothing wrong in this man. It's your custom that I pardon one prisoner at Passover. Do you want me to pardon the king of the Jews? They shouted back, not this one, but Barabbas. Barabbas is Jewish freedom.
In fighting monsters, be careful not to. So said the German philosopher Nietzsche. And he added, when you gaze for a while into the abyss of life and despair, the abyss looks back into you. So if you don't stand for something, you will fall for anything. Now, if you're like me, you might be a little bit like Peter, where you're still warming yourself in the fire of life, whatever it might be that gives you comfort and consolation. It can be really hard to stand for something when it costs you something in this civilization. Even to fight against things like global warming sometimes, and sexism. I like the story from Star Wars, first one, where Darth Vader, maybe it's the second one, Darth Vader is revealed. Now the character Darth Vader represents the machine state, that is a civilization that has no heart, no compassion, represented by the destructive power of the Death Star. It's fascinating that when Darth Vader's mask is removed in the film, his face is nothing but a gooey substance with no clear features. And when you remove his uniform and his mask, he's barely a real man. There are those people in our country who are nothing more than the mask, who are performing a role which perhaps they have given themselves to, which is destructive. Sometimes in fighting the evil and the monsters, we need a core sense of values, a solid self. In fact, we need it every time. I would ask the question, probably not serious. What is truth? We need not just our truth, but the truth. To have a core sense of values in fighting monsters, in fighting those forces of destructiveness and sexism in our society. Paul put it well in his letter to the Philippians. He said, he added an objective element to truth and to having a core sense of self. He said, whatever is true, whatever is good report, is a good report, whatever is perfect and right in the eyes of all, he wrote. Put your mind on these things. Do these things. And the God of peace will be with you. An objective element to know that we can find what is true and what lifts up others who have no voice in our society. In fighting monsters, invest in God's glory. And if the word glory is a strange word to you, it means simply this. How will you be a blessing to others? How will you manifest the good? Because the word glory in the Bible was always there. A radiance, something of beauty, but that good purpose often gets tarnished when we're fighting destructiveness, when we feel anxious. I used to be a chaplain in Special Forces, and Special Forces are an example of when you are fighting monsters, be careful that you don't become one. You might remember at the end of last year, certain troopers from SAS were accused of committing war crimes while on deployment in Afghanistan. It would seem that their anxiety and their commitment to wearing the mask and being a type A alpha male, a warrior, may have gotten the better of some of them. Maybe they did not create a will that was good, that even transcended the defense force. Imagine my surprise when one night, 4 years ago, before those stories of war crimes and allegations broke in the media, 4 years ago, when I had a fellow chaplain say to me, we have reports that will make your hair stand up, what little hair I had, of soldiers who have been on several patrols, and because they haven't been in a combat situation, have actually, in the allegation, attacked non-combatants in villages in Afghanistan just to get up their kill rate, to put a few more notches on their belt. Jesus shows us the extravagance and the strength of God's glory that is manifesting good despite the worst circumstances. Well, Peter warmed himself around the fire, which I probably would have done. And Pilate asked him about truth and put him on trial for his life. He spoke his truth. He had a core sense of self that was unshakable because he had a will. He cultivated a will that was good. Even in his dark night of the soul and the temptations of Christ in the wilderness, it's a story that is still highly relevant to you in your soul. Jesus had to go into the wilderness, so the story tells us, and work out what kind of man he was going to be. Would he be a king, turning the stones into bread, being borne up by the angels, and he cast himself down from the temple to show his strength and how special he was? No. No. He rejected all of those plays of power over others in favor of being a son of God who suffered and died for justice and right relationships. He said, the Son of Man, is about to be glorified. That is to manifest the extravagance of God's love for justice. We relax into the moments. We open our minds. We relax our mind. Our mind and soul are now open to the good spirit. We are in the presence. Your prayer for others. And we join together in prayer to the God within us, God beyond us, who speaks to us now, to our conscience, gives us strength to ask the right questions. We listen. We listen. Would you please pray with me this version of the Lord's Prayer, the words of last week, dedicated to His husband. Creator of all, from the stars to all the earth, loved and respected by God. May happen in the ocean your heart, following your purpose for all creation. Enable us to find what we need for satisfaction. Forgive us when we are wrong, as we forgive those who wrong us. Have compassion on us when we have been tested. Do not abandon us cheerfully. Our hope is in your meekness. You are alive and possess all creation, and make everything new, now and for all eternity. Amen. For you